Yeah, we're doing it. Dislike the video. Coward. So Doom Eternal is the best single-player FPS I've played, well, since Doom 2016. It's an excellent campaign, and I give it a fat-ass 9 out of 10. So why am I making this video? Well, regular viewers of my channel know that this is a series I do, and that I believe in the importance of negative reviews, despite how good a game may be. So I can tell you that I think Doom Eternal is a 9 out of 10 game, and you should absolutely go buy it, but if we're not going to criticize the objective issues that still exist with it, then what the hell are we doing here? Doom Eternal is not perfect, and I'm now going to nitpick for however many minutes this video is. This is everything about Doom Eternal that annoys me. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The Marauders. They're horseshit. It's one thing to have a game where the enemies are tough, but it's another thing to have a game like Doom, where every single enemy is consistent and predictable and it makes for this great dance of strategy and gun skill, and then have an enemy type that completely breaks its own rules and so obviously isn't programmed correctly. The Marauder is explained to you in a hint where he's first introduced, but the reason he's so frustrating isn't because he's fast or strong, which he is, but because he doesn't follow his own rules. He's completely unpredictable, despite being explained to you in a predictable way. And it creates a situation where whenever a Marauder appears in a group fight, you have to frantically run around and kill everything else first while he's chasing you, because he's too unpredictable to multitask against other enemies. Like I said, Doom is about fighting giant groups of enemies who are all distinct from one another and require different tactics to defeat, but they're all predictable with their attacks. So when you have a mini-boss who completely breaks that design philosophy, it disrupts the whole flow of the game, and it makes for a really frustrating experience. One-on-one, the Marauders are just annoying, but in a group fight, they're downright unfair. Next topic is swimming. Why is it here? I was honestly confused when I came across the first swimming section. I kept expecting it to suddenly turn on its head and be a fun subversion, but no, there's just weird, slow, timed swimming sections in this game. Like I suddenly switched over to the worst parts of Conker's Bad Fur Day. I've seen people complain about the puzzles in Doom Eternal, and I don't really have a problem with them. Doom has always had puzzles and problem solving in between the firefights, and I think the puzzles in this game are well designed and a good way to even out the pacing. But the swimming is just unnecessary. The new Doom series is supposed to be the opposite of all the problems with modern FPS design, and for the most part it does that perfectly. But then I'm wading through a pool of water that's toxic for some reason, and I have to fight with the dash controls just to get to the next section before the game starts yelling at me to get the hell out of the water before I suffer a non-specific death. Other than those things, I can't really think of many issues I have with the campaign. I guess I could mention that the boss fights are a tad underwhelming aside from the last one, but I seem to be the only person who thinks that, so it might just be me. I do have some gripes with the game's ending. As you probably know, Doom Eternal is much more story-heavy than Doom 2016, and I think they did this very, very well. The story is simple, but it's still more detailed than before, and the cutscenes are awesome and don't break the flow of the game. However, I have issues with the way it ends. Without wishing to spoil, the game builds up really well in terms of gameplay and progression and getting to know the universe you're in and what has to be done. But then after the final boss fight, the game just ends. It's a great fight, mind you, and it was extremely satisfying to bring the final boss down, but there's a lot of loose ends left in the story, and it's not like the last game, which ended on a deliberate cliffhanger. This time around, a bunch of stuff is built up, you're all ready for the climax, and then it just stops after the final boss, and nobody even acknowledges where the story was going, or all the things that were set up and still haven't been accomplished. It's just kind of a bittersweet ending to a campaign because, like I said, the gameplay is so good and the final boss fight was excellent, but the actual story doesn't have a satisfying ending at all. And before you come in the comments and say Doom isn't about story, well, I would be fine with that if the story wasn't pushed on us so hard this time around. And again, I like this story. I like where it goes, I like the reveals and the cutscenes. The story was good, but there's no satisfying ending. At all. There's story DLC coming a bit down the pipeline, but I'm honestly just gonna be even more annoyed if the actual ending isn't there instead of in the game I already paid $60 for. Also, can we address the fact that this is the first Doom game ever to not have deathmatch? Doom 1, 2, 3, and 2016 all had team multiplayer and deathmatch. And even if they weren't all great, it was still a staple of the series. Multiplayer this time around has been completely redone into battle mode. And while I do enjoy the mode a little bit, I guess, It's fine. I know I'm not the only one who also wants to play deathmatch, especially after feeling how damn smooth the campaign's gunplay is. Aren't sequels a time to improve upon your last game? Doom 2016's multiplayer was a bit of a mess, so you would expect the sequel to make it better, right? Well, no, it's just gone, replaced with a weird singular multiplayer mode. And if you don't like that one multiplayer mode, well, that sucks. You just don't get multiplayer. And listening to Hugo Martin on the Joe Rogan podcast a few weeks ago kind of highlighted my issue with the development mindset here. He said on that episode that the multiplayer in Doom 2016 wasn't very well received, which is accurate, and that was their driving factor to make something completely new. And while I do respect the originality here, even though the concept isn't that original, it almost feels like there was a fundamental misunderstanding of the criticism. For those who don't know, Doom 2016's multiplayer was not developed by id Software. It was a group effort with them and Certain Affinity, a smaller studio who had a lot of experience as a multiplayer assistant for Call of Duty and Halo. And that's the main reason why Doom 2016's multiplayer felt a lot more like COD and Halo than it did Doom. So when Hugo Martin talks about the lackluster reception of the multiplayer last time, it's almost like he's misunderstanding the problem. The problem with Doom 2016's multiplayer wasn't that it was bad, it was that it wasn't Doom. I had fun with it, a lot of people did, but it just wasn't Doom. The criticism you received was not because we're tired of deathmatch or anything like that, but because you made a Doom reboot and included a multiplayer experience that was so non-Doom it turned people off. So again, I really respect them going back to the drawing board and making something totally new. I really do respect that. But criticism is a chance to make your sequel better, not to just throw it out altogether. And that being said, there really isn't much multiplayer content in Doom Eternal at all, because of this change in philosophy. Why couldn't you have just included classic Doom Deathmatch alongside Battle Mode? Or maybe work to improve Doom 2016's version of multiplayer in addition to Battle Mode? No matter what way you slice it, this is the first mainline Doom game to ever not have deathmatch. And when you line up the amount of content you got for $60 last time around versus this time, there was a serious cutback. And since we're on the topic of things being removed from the last game, where is SnapMap? You know, the super underrated feature that gave people pretty much unlimited replay value for the game because of all the amazing things that you could do with it. Seriously, if you still have Doom 2016, go back and take a look at all the things people did with SnapMap. It is amazing, and it doesn't get nearly enough credit. But now it's just completely gone. Why? This is like a new Halo game cutting out Forge. What's the purpose of removing a feature that does nothing but lengthen the game's shelf life and encourage community engagement? You could have just copy-pasted SnapMap from the last game and it would have been awesome. Again, a sequel is a time to improve upon what you did before, or at least match it. And as much as I adore Doom Eternal's campaign, it's such a shame that rather than build upon the less talked about aspects of Doom 2016, id Software just said screw it and dropped them altogether. I honestly worry about Doom Eternal's lasting appeal because of this. Perhaps they could add things a little down the line with patches and DLC and make me look like a whiny nitpicking fuckhead, but I don't know if that's really where their head is right now. And I don't know if that would even really make it better. Fixing these things down the line wouldn't change the fact that the problem is here now. And as much as you want to praise Doom Eternal's campaign, these are problems. As much as Doom Eternal's campaign is an improvement over the last game, everything outside of the campaign is not, and that's concerning to me. So that's everything about Doom Eternal that annoys me. So let me know what you're thinking about the game in the comments, and let me reiterate that I adore this game. It's a 9 out of 10 campaign, and absolutely worth your money. I'm hoping this video seemed legitimate, because as much as I joke about nitpicking and whining, I do think these are legitimate issues that id Software and other FPS developers should take to heart. So go buy Doom Eternal, follow me on Twitter at JoeFromSeattle1, and donate to the channel with a link in the description if you want to. And I'll see you guys all later.